So this workshop idea is based on a workshop for teachers regarding the implementation of a classroom art board. This workshop stems from a conference I participated in during my undergraduate studies at the Loyola College for Diversity and Sustainability at Concordia University. So the conference featured topics on sustainability in business. It was an annual collaborative event with students from Siena College in Albany, New York. We took turns hosting on alternate years, and this was our year to host. The college hired an artist for the second day of presentations. He had a large canvas pinned on the back wall, and throughout the course of the conference, he began to create a work of art that represented what the presentations discussed. Following the presentations, everyone was invited to contribute to the work of art, culminating in an inspiring work that demonstrated the wide array of talent and ideas the conference had to offer. The art board will be a collaborative collage of students' creative contribution that will take place over the course of a unit. Artwork can include writing, drawings, symbols, quotes, magazine cutouts, or any other creative contribution suggested by students as long as it is reflective of what has been discussed during the day's class. The workshop is based on arts included integration, where art instruction is included alongside other subjects. This approach utilizes the arts used to make meaning of what is learned. The workshop will feature a theoretical structure on the use of an artboard that will enable students to use higher order thinking skills, as well as their innate recognition of aesthetic qualities as a means to gain a deeper and more meaningful understanding of an academic subject or concept to reinforce their learning. Throughout the course of the workshop, I have presented it to several people who have also generated an artboard reflecting this workshop, and I invite you to do the same. The final product would be displayed at the end. And this is just an example of how easily this can be integrated into lesson plans as a component of the class that is done maybe at the end, where people can accumulate all of the concepts that have been learned and basically display the representations of it on this artboard. So the goal of this workshop is basically to inspire self-directed learning. Materials needed could be a range of things. If you're using a collage concept, you will need maybe to bring in some magazines and scissors, tape, glue. Same thing goes for any arts and crafts material, but simply colored markers, pens, pencils, crayons, that will do as well. Students can also be encouraged to write either a piece of creative writing that was inspired by the class material, or perhaps a question or prompt for other students. I will go through several stages of learning. It will include autonomy over learning and multiple intelligences. It will include meaningful connections between self and class contact, as well as classroom community and environment, and multimodal and representations of learning. All right, so first concept that we're going to cover is autonomy over learning and multiple intelligences. So through artboards, students are provided with an opportunity to have autonomy over their learning and learn to work collaboratively to derive their own meaning from information and discussion that occurs in class. Students also learn to appreciate and engage in a creative process and to familiarize themselves with the many tools and paths toward creative output. Understanding and benefiting from different ways of creating and making meaning is representative of Howard Gardner's research on multiple intelligence theory. According to multiple intelligence theory, everyone possesses all 8 intelligences, but their appearance is unique for each individual. The 8 intelligences are as follows: linguistic, logical mathematical, spatial, bodily kinesthetic, musical, intrapersonal, and naturalist. Most people do have the capacity to develop each intelligence to an adequate level of competency. Intelligences tend to function together in complex ways, and there are many ways to be intelligent within each category. Traditional learning in a single discipline focuses on a single skill or talent, whereas the arts, by comparison, regularly engages multiple skills and abilities. This then encourages risk-taking by students and allows room for mistakes and provides an avenue to encourage diversity and multiculturalism. So, once again, revisiting multiple intelligences. The use of an artboard enables recognizing that students have different strengths, and providing activities to accommodate those strengths while bridging to the weaker areas is at the heart of diversified instruction. Therefore, this activity allows for a universal design for learning to ensure that all students achieve their potential through accessing different ways of learning. Now, the next section is making meaningful connections between the self and class content. Through the act of creation, students will be better able to understand the composition of texts studied in the classroom and the value of the information emphasized in lessons. By taking control of the language or information used, students will make the leap from consumer to creator of language, information, and artistic production, letting them critically engage with the material from a variety of angles and perspectives. Creating a classroom connection and greater capacity of self-reflection is a direct result of creating an artwork, since it reflects a personal experience and forces students to draw upon their personal resources. This could include their prior knowledge, to generate the final result. By engaging his or her whole person, the student feels invested in ways that are deeper than knowing the answer, which also changes how students perceive their own learning process. Being actively involved in their own learning process encourages self-direct learning, as students are not only motivated by the results of their learning, but through the learning process itself. Teachers are also provided with the ability to adopt a role as an active facilitator of learning, as they guide their students' representations and help them make meaningful connections. However, the topic and what is discussed is completely student-centered, and students are provided with the control of what is discussed and when, since they are producing the basis of this discussion. The theoretical rationale for the guided activity principle is that prompting students to actively engage in the selection, organization, and integration of new information encourages essential and generative processing. This processing leads to deeper understanding than having students passively process identical instructional materials. An important and central factor to the success of using an artboard is the concept of interactivity, which is predicated on two-way action occurring between the learner and the instructor. Students are therefore included in the ultimate goal that their and all the participants' actions must be to foster learning. There needs to be a distinction between two views of learning. One is information acquisition, and the second is knowledge construction. The learner is a sense maker who works to select, organize, and integrate new information with existing knowledge. According to a knowledge construction approach to learning, the goal of instruction is to guide the learner to actively make sense of the instructional materials. So deep learning depends on cognitive activity, such as selecting relevant information from a lesson, mentally organizing it into a coherent structure, and integrating the new knowledge with existing knowledge. By engaging in interactive knowledge construction, the teacher guides students to produce deep cognitive processes. Familiarizing themselves with the process of making meaning introduces metacognition as a crucial role in social learning, thus allowing students to gain insight into learning strategies. Metacognitive learning means not just focusing on classroom content, but also on the strategies used to learn the content. Students are then able to assess their own knowledge and examine their cognitive processes through opportunities where they are encouraged to reflect on their learning. In order for deep learning to occur, teachers need to combine guided activity principles and reflection. Students' metacognition helps teachers understand student learning. Educators learn about themselves as teachers when they promote metacognitive awareness among their students, because reflective thinking allows students to offer valuable feedback to their teachers regarding where their explanations were effective or confusing. Now, the next topic is classroom community and environment. The use of a collaborative board will create a sense of community engagement in the classroom and foster creative exchange while enabling peer-to-peer learning. Using a structural approach to cooperative learning is a content-free way of organizing social interaction in the classroom. Fostering social interaction will therefore enable cooperative activities. Cooperative activities have a specific content-bound objective and, thus, cannot be used to deliver a range of academic content. In contrast, structures may be used repeatedly with almost any subject matter at a wide range of grade levels and at various points in a lesson plan. Characteristics of a cooperative environment include positive interdependence. When one student knows the answer, the ability of each student is increased, describes the nature of positive interdependence within the classroom. Pacing is the second characteristic of a cooperative environment. Pacing encourages students to learn more effectively as they have the ability to set the pace of their content learning. Experts who participated on a study dedicated to discerning how creativity operates within a classroom and its impact on both students and teachers described a classroom environment that enhances creativity in 3 different dimensions: teaching strategies, teachers' attitudes, and classroom climate. Teaching strategies should reflect student-centered views as well as provide opportunities for students to engage in a variety of activities. Through active class involvement, students not only participate in the creation of their own learning environment and content, but are continuously interacting with and examining how the material they are studying is related to their own lives. This fosters student engagement, as they will feel more in control of the classroom environment and subject matter. Researchers found that students who are disengaged from schools and other community institutions are at the greatest risk of failure or harm. When art and creative expression was introduced and emphasized in the curriculum, it provided a reason, sometimes the only one, for students to become engaged in their schools or community organization. Once again, referring to Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, it becomes increasingly clear that different styles of learning are addressed through the inclusion of a classroom artboard, as being successful in artistic expression can become a bridge to learning and eventual success in all other areas of learning. Finally, multimodal aspects and representations. So, through the multimodal approaches of the creative work, students will be able to view language and how information is taught and documented in a variety of contexts, and explore the plethora of different ways to construct meaning and use language or image production. The completed work will also serve as an effective memory aid to review material learned in class, as well as a springboard for classroom discussion. When defining multimodal learning environments, it is important to consider 2 types of knowledge content: verbal and nonverbal. Interactive multimodal learning environments are defined by what happens depends on the actions of the learner. By taking control of the act of creation and experimenting with various creative activities, students will be able to harness and understand the complexity of a single narrative and the rich array of diverse voices that exist in the world and the microcosm of their own classroom. This enables them to have a concrete representation of the concept of critical thinking. So here's an example of the artboard that was created in reflection of this workshop. The physical environment and space of a classroom is transformed through a display of various representations of learning. Learning is deepest when learners have the capacity to represent what they have learned, and the multiple disciplines of the arts all provide modes of representation. This is an interdisciplinary workshop. It can work for any subject, and in terms of my background in English language arts, this is definitely applicable, since in order to make literature meaningful, students must be given aesthetic opportunities to respond to the printed text. These drawing pictures can also be used for prompting for writing and different ways of brainstorming. Thank you so much for your attention and participation during this workshop, and I hope this is an idea that you can see being implemented in your own classroom.